It was a bright morning over the wide-open runways of a U.S. Air Force base, the tarmac shimmering with heat waves as engines roared to life, and aviation crews prepared for yet another day of thunder in the skies. But on this particular day, the base was buzzing with more attention than usual. Not just because of the sound of jet turbines ramping up, but because a highly skilled female pilot was about to take command of an F-15 Eagle and show the world exactly what American speed, precision, and power look like when pushed to the limits. Her name was Captain Ava Mitchell, a combat-proven ace, decorated with multiple commendations for her fearless performance in high-risk operations over hostile zones. As she strode confidently toward the twin-engine beast, the crew members saluted her not just out of duty, but out of deep respect. She wasn't just a pilot. She was a symbol of grit and greatness, a shining example of how the United States Air Force doesn't care about gender, only performance. With her helmet tucked under one arm and the American flag patch blazing on her sleeve, she climbed into the cockpit of the F-15, one of the most iconic and lethal aircraft in U.S. military aviation history. Ground control gave her the green light, and within seconds, the engine screamed to life, twin afterburners spitting blue flame, the sheer power of the Pratt and Whitney F-100 turbofans vibrating through the earth. As she taxied to the runway, every camera and pair of binoculars tracked her movement, knowing something extraordinary was about to unfold. Then it happened. Full throttle, brakes released, and in a deafening roar, the F-15 surged forward like a bullet from a cannon. It wasn't just a takeoff. It was a thunderous ascension, a vertical climb that had jaws dropping and hearts racing. The Eagle sliced through the air with bone-rattling intensity, and within seconds it had left the horizon, banking hard left, performing maneuvers that most pilots would only dare to try in simulations. Captain Mitchell executed a full vertical loop at low altitude before rocketing to 30,000 feet in a matter of seconds, demonstrating not only her nerves of steel, but also the raw might of American aerospace engineering. Viewers on the ground watched in awe as the fighter jet danced like a predator above the clouds, slicing the air with precision as it entered a high G spiral dive and then shot back up into the sky. But just when everyone thought they'd seen it all, the mission control radio crackled with unexpected chatter. Another aircraft, a foreign contact, had entered restricted airspace during the training run. Instantly, Captain Mitchell was ordered to intercept her F-15 turning into a combat-ready spearhead, sensors locking on, weapons hot, the sky becoming a chessboard of tactical maneuvers. Within minutes, she had eyes on a rogue drone skimming near the border of a no-fly zone. No hesitation. She angled in, marked the target, and buzzed it with a warning pass so low and fast it sent shockwaves across the area. The drone retreated, and just like that, the skies were safe again. Cheers erupted back at base, not just for her skill, but for her composure under pressure. As she returned, the landing was flawless, butter smooth despite high crosswinds. The ground crew erupted in applause, not because it was a dramatic ending, but because they'd witnessed something special, a blend of courage, speed, and sheer mastery from a pilot who represented the very best of what the U.S. Air Force has to offer. Footage of the flight went viral. Millions of viewers stunned not only by the jet's insane speed and power, but by the elegance and discipline of the pilot in the cockpit. Comments poured in, "America's daughter in the skies. That's why we don't mess with U.S. airspace. Respect to this amazing woman and her machine." News outlets picked up the story. Headlines blared. Female fighter pilot dazzles world with daring F-15 display, and U.S. air power reigns supreme in the hands of Captain Mitchell. For many young women across the country, it was more than a viral video. It was a moment of inspiration, proof that the cockpit of an F-15 isn't just for the few, it's for the fearless. But for those who know the military world, it was no surprise. The United States has been integrating more female pilots into elite roles for years, and Captain Mitchell was simply the latest name in a growing list of warriors who redefine what it means to serve. Her jet, the F-15 Eagle, is more than just a machine. It's a 40,000-pound beast capable of Mach 2.5 speeds, carrying air-to-air and air-to-ground weapons with deadly accuracy. With a combat record unmatched by most fighters, the F-15 remains a backbone of U.S. air dominance. And when someone like Captain Mitchell straps into one, it becomes something even more, an unstoppable force. In the aftermath of that flight, recruitment offices saw a spike in interest. Young Americans across the country, from small-town Texas to downtown Chicago, started searching how to become a fighter pilot. Inspired by one woman's flight that reminded the world that when it comes to protecting freedom, there are no limits. Whether soaring through clouds at insane speed or standing calmly before takeoff, Captain Ava Mitchell showed that it's not about male or female. It's about the mission, the mettle, and the mindset. In the end, the F-15 that roared off that runway wasn't just an aircraft. It was a message to the world. The skies belong to the brave. As the echoes of Captain Ava Mitchell's breathtaking flight still lingered over the runway and online, buzz continued to build across social media platforms. Something deeper began to unfold behind the scenes. Her performance wasn't just going viral for its spectacle. It was becoming a case study inside the halls of the Pentagon, at Air Combat Command, and within the training circles of allied nations. The maneuver precision, flawless command execution, and seamless transition from a show-of-force takeoff to real-time threat engagement drew commendations from commanders across multiple branches of the military, even prompting NATO air forces to request access to the full flight footage for their own pilot training programs. But beyond the official channels and accolades, something else was happening. A powerful narrative was spreading like wildfire, reshaping how Americans in the world view female combat aviators. Media outlets followed up with exclusive interviews, and Captain Mitchell remained humble yet firm in her responses, often turning the spotlight away from herself and toward the thousands of other dedicated men and women serving across the U.S. Air Force. "It's never just one pilot," she said in one interview. "It's the aircraft maintainers, the mission planners, the command center, and every single person who ensures that bird gets off the ground safely and returns without a scratch." Still, there was no denying the magnetism of her moment. Hollywood studios even reached out, sensing a potential story arc that could fuel a blockbuster feature film, one combining the intensity of Top Gun with the realism and diversity of today's Air Force. Meanwhile, the F-15 Eagle that Captain Mitchell flew was temporarily retired from duty and put on limited display at a military expo in Nevada, where thousands came to see up close a jet that had become legendary in just one flight. Kids posed next to the jet, some dressing in mock pilot gear, and young girls in particular looked at the canopy and saw themselves reflected in it, not as dreams, but as possibilities. On a technical level, analysts pored over the data from her flight, evaluating acceleration rates, angle of attack, G-forces endured, and radar targeting speeds. What they found was nothing short of incredible. Her reaction time during the aerial intercept was faster than average by nearly 40%, and her final maneuver to buzz the rogue drone and re-establish control of the airspace was textbook perfect under modern combat doctrine. It sparked renewed conversations about upgrading training simulators to mirror real-life unpredictable scenarios, especially for urban and near-border flights where threats could appear without warning. Even rival nations reportedly took note. Military intelligence sources quietly admitted that foreign surveillance forums flagged her name and her flight footage, assessing her as a high-value target, an elite pilot within NATO air superiority structure. But while others studied her from afar, Ava stayed focused, already back in training for her next deployment rotation. "There's always another mission," she said. "You can't get caught up in the noise." And she was right. Weeks later, during a night operation under blackout conditions in the Pacific Theater, she once again proved her mettle, flying a low-altitude infiltration support mission where GPS was jammed, communications were disrupted, and visibility was near zero due to a tropical storm. Using raw flight instincts, backup and AV systems, and pure training, she guided her squad to the operation flawlessly, later earning a Distinguished Flying Cross for her leadership and risk under fire. Word of that mission didn't go public, too classified, too sensitive, but within Air Force circles, it only further solidified her legend. Meanwhile, her original viral flight continued to evolve into an educational tool, motivational centerpiece, and recruiting powerhouse. The Air Force capitalized on the buzz, launching a new campaign titled Fly Bold, featuring real pilots like Ava instead of actors, showing real cockpit footage instead of CGI. Across YouTube, the video continued racking up views, hitting 10 million in just a few weeks. Military and aviation fan channels broke it down frame by frame, and the comment section was filled with everything from aerospace engineers praising the jet's thrust-to-weight ratio to teenagers saying they just applied to ROTC. American pride surged in the wake of it, with citizens feeling reconnected to the power, professionalism, and promise of their armed forces. And it wasn't just Americans. Pilots from allied nations began citing Ava's flight in their own briefings, with phrases like pull a Mitchell or go full eagle mode becoming inside slang for bold, confident flying. Even seasoned male pilots voiced admiration, many noting that what she pulled off wasn't about gender. It was simply peak performance. And that's how she wanted it. We wear the same flight suits. We fly the same jets. We swear the same oath. Ava once said during a base leadership seminar, "What matters is excellence." That's it. No other qualifiers. As the Air Force began experimenting with next-gen flight suits, optimized for better body ergonomics for all pilots regardless of size or gender, Ava was invited to be part of the test group. Her feedback helped shape future gear that would enhance safety, comfort, and endurance for years to come. But she never asked for praise. She just kept flying. Her next rotation was rumored to be part of a classified joint exercise between U.S., Australian, and Japanese Air Forces in the Indo-Pacific, simulating rapid response defense to a naval incursion. Once again, her F-15 would scream through the skies, but now with even more eyes watching, more radar pings tracking, more hopes pinned to her call sign. And as she lifted off the runway that day, her eagle glowing against the setting sun, one thing was clear. She wasn't flying for fame, for clicks, or for headlines. She was flying with a flag on her shoulder, the mission in her heart, and the country that believed in her. In that moment, as the afterburners lit up and the earth fell away beneath her, the beautiful female pilot in the F-15 wasn't just a viral video star. She was a guardian of the sky, a symbol of American resolve, and a reminder that when the stakes are highest, it's not about who you are, it's about what you do. In the weeks following her classified deployment, Captain Ava Mitchell's name continued to resonate not only within elite Air Force units, but across military academies, strategic command sessions, and leadership conferences, becoming a point of reference for everything from aerial combat excellence to crisis management under extreme duress. What had started as a moment of high-speed brilliance, her F-15 Eagle's stunning vertical takeoff and tactical maneuvers, had matured into something larger, a narrative symbolizing the grit, grace, and unstoppable force of a modern American warrior. Internally, the Air Force launched a comprehensive analysis on how her performance could influence the next generation of fighter pilot training doctrine. Ava was invited to join top-level think tanks involving retired generals, DARPA engineers, and NASA flight specialists, helping brainstorm future strategies for human-machine teaming, autonomous wingman integration, and artificial intelligence-based aerial decision support systems. Her insight wasn't theoretical. It was forged at Mach speed in real-world battle airspace and backed by combat hours that few of her peers had logged at her age. She was instrumental in helping craft new protocols for female aviators flying long-duration sorties in fourth and fifth-generation fighters, addressing not only ergonomic needs, but psychological resilience and strategic confidence in joint force environments. At the same time, a congressional hearing on military readiness played her flight footage as part of a presentation on global deterrence, showcasing it as a case study in American preparedness and pilot superiority in the face of escalating geopolitical threats. Across the ocean, foreign defense analysts began updating their pilot threat assessment boards, moving Ava's unit into higher alert categories, noting her as a reactive force multiplier and lethal in both solo and squadron maneuvers. Meanwhile, Hollywood's interest in her story had turned into full production, with Ava eventually agreeing to consult behind the scenes to ensure accuracy. The film was greenlit under a working title, Eagle Rising, with a former fighter pilot turned director at the helm, and an all-star cast portraying an international air exercise turned combat mission. It wasn't just dramatized, it was inspired by real events. The film showed how one female pilot's unshakable nerves and tactical mastery could change the course of conflict in the Indo-Pacific theater. But even as the film gained momentum, Ava never stopped flying. While public fascination centered around her story, she remained locked into her role, refining her squadron's readiness, running joint drills with allied nations, and mentoring younger pilots who now viewed her as a legend in real time. You're only as good as your last sortie, she'd remind them. And hers kept getting better. During an emergency NATO drill in freezing Arctic conditions, Ava had to take off from an icy runway with only a quarter-mile of clearance, maneuvering around stalled aircraft and launching into sub-zero turbulence where even the HUDs began to glitch. Her ability to maintain radar lock, correct altitude, and lead her wingmen safely out of the sector saved the entire operation. For that, she was quietly nominated for a Silver Star, though Ava, ever humble, redirected the honor to her maintenance crew, who had prepped the bird under impossible conditions. That bond between pilot and crew became another cornerstone of her story. She made it a tradition to eat lunch in the hangar bay, sit in on diagnostics reports, and personally thank each member of the team after flight. It wasn't performative. It was principle. She understood that the F-15 she flew wasn't just metal and avionics. It was the sweat, skill, and sacrifice of dozens of others working behind the scenes. Meanwhile, recruitment centers across the U.S. reported spikes in interest from young women citing Captain Mitchell's video as their first inspiration. ROTC applications surged. Parents wrote letters to bases thanking the Air Force for showcasing real, courageous women role models. And all the while, Ava kept her eyes on the sky. When tension spiked over the South China Sea during a multinational naval drill, she was called in again, this time to fly an armed air patrol at the edge of contested airspace. With stealth drones shadowing her wing and adversary radar attempting to lock on, she executed a high-speed vertical jink maneuver that not only broke the lock, but spooked the opposing fighters into retreat. The data from that maneuver was immediately requested by U.S. Cyber Command for AI modeling purposes. At this point, Ava's influence reached beyond the cockpit. Her flying had become data for the future. Simulators use her actual moves. VR pilot trainers replicated her control stick patterns. Even spaceflight engineers began studying her G-force tolerance in preparation for designing military-capable spacecraft pilot systems. And yet, she remained grounded, literally. She took leave once to visit her hometown, walking into a middle school gym where she had once dreamed of flight as a teenager. The students, wide-eyed and cheering, asked her everything from how fast a jet flew to whether she was scared before takeoff. She smiled and said, "Yes, I get nervous, but that's what makes you human. What matters is what you do when the adrenaline hits." That quote went viral too, becoming the mantra on Air Force Academy posters and recruitment flyers. Her story became a fusion of skill and symbolism, proof that with discipline, dedication, and patriotism, anyone could rise beyond the limits. And so, the woman behind the controls of the F-15 Eagle continued to blaze across the world stage, not for fame or flash, but for the mission. Whether breaking the sound barrier in real-world intercepts, dominating red flag exercises over Nevada, or guiding the next generation of American warriors from briefing rooms and flight decks, Captain Ava Mitchell had already achieved what few ever could. She had turned a single moment of stunning speed and courage into a legacy, and in doing so, reminded the world that when America takes off, it takes off fast, hard, and fearlessly, with the full power of its people, its technology, and its undying spirit soaring high above the clouds.